All right, let's get right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking something deeply unsettling: how an online mystery rapidly devolved into an absolute psychological nightmare in the real world. What we're looking at isn't fiction. It's a stark, documented look at the real human cost of unregulated internet puzzles. We're going to examine actual email logs that track one participant's terrifying descent into paranoia. And the crazy part? We'll see how that paranoia wasn't just ignored, it was actively manipulated by the very person claiming to be her guide. This is all about the devastating power dynamics hidden behind anonymous avatars, and what happens when someone you trust deliberately erases the line between a digital game and physical reality. So listen to these haunting words from a participant named Paula, who usually goes by the handle Pavana. I want help, truth, and answers wherever I can get it because I was badly hurt, hospitalized, poisoned near to death. I mean, hospitalized, poisoned. These aren't just clever metaphors for a tough riddle, right? These are the desperate cries of someone experiencing very real trauma. This really sets the stakes for us. We're not talking about some harmless weekend distraction here. We are looking at a woman dealing with severe physical and psychological distress, whose very reality is just totally fracturing. So it really begs the question, what actually happens when an online puzzle becomes a psychological prison? And honestly, what happens when the architect of that prison is someone you consider a friend? We're going to track how a guy named Thomas, who had positioned himself as this trusted guide and insider to the game, deliberately messed with Pavana's fragile mental state. Instead of helping a friend out of a confusing maze, Thomas essentially locked the doors, turned off the lights, and just started whispering lies in the dark. It makes you wonder how anyone justifies weaponizing another person's confusion like that. Part 1, A Mind Under Siege. Let's look at the timeline starting in late October 2017. During this time, Pavana sends a flurry of emails that clearly show a terrifying break from reality. We really have to look at the exact words she uses, because it paints this incredibly visceral picture of her mental health. She is losing her grip, and the digital world is just completely overriding her physical senses. Just looking at a frantic 48-hour window between October 23rd and 24th, Pavana's mind is essentially a chaotic battleground. She's firing off these erratic emails constantly, day and night. Her language completely breaks down into this fragmented, frantic poetry. She's writing endlessly about vivid nightmares, terrifying switch glitches, and feeling like she's being injected. What we're witnessing here is a total inability to separate the fictional lore of the game from her actual real life. The boundaries are just gone. She is utterly exposed. Her messages during these 2 days were just desperately confusing, blending pop culture references with sheer panic and visceral pain. Take this chilling line. Is this real? I downloaded Tesla for Pepe's sake. It burns. It burns. She is actively experiencing tactile hallucinations. She's feeling real, physical burning sensations that she believes are coming directly from her digital interactions. This is the exact moment of her acute mental breakdown. It's a moment of complete vulnerability that Thomas decides to exploit rather than treat with, basic human empathy. The sheer horror of it all really hits when she writes, "Send in the clowns. That's what they did. They made me into my thumbnail." It just goes to show how the internet culture she was so deep into had completely warped her sense of self. She feels like she has literally been transformed into her digital avatar. That protective wall between her real flesh and blood self and the pixels on her screen has just totally collapsed into pure terror. Part 2, Fueling the Paranoia. Because honestly, the most shocking part of this whole thing isn't just Pavana's breakdown, it's how the person on the other end reacted. When faced with someone actively losing their grip on reality, Thomas didn't just fail to help, he deliberately dragged her deeper into the rabbit hole exactly while she was breaking down. Just think about the cognitive dissonance he's creating here. On one hand, Thomas is playing the caring friend, telling a paranoid woman, "You need serious rest." But literally in the same time frame, he's feeding her outrageous, terrifying claims. He tells her his team investigated Zodiac killings that were actually committed by the police. He's actively feeding her massive conspiracy theories at the exact moment her mind is at its most fragile. He's making absolutely sure she can't find the rest he claims she needs. And the cruelty just keeps going. He actively heightens her sense of immediate danger. He literally tells her, "I can assure you that BrotherBox has people trying to port sniff your computer right now." Telling a woman suffering from severe digital paranoia that her computer is currently being hacked by hostile rivals, that is a deliberate attempt to shatter whatever sanity she has left. He's isolating her, making sure she feels totally unsafe in her own home, trapped by unseen enemies. We absolutely have to define gaslighting here. It's manipulating someone into questioning their own sanity, often by faking concern while deliberately feeding their delusions. This is crucial for understanding the story, because this tactic turns a confusing game into a dangerous weapon. By telling Pavana she's overworked, while simultaneously validating and expanding her darkest fears, Thomas is pulling off textbook psychological manipulation. He's making her entirely dependent on him, manufacturing the very danger he claims to understand. Part 3. Pleading for the fix. The result of all this relentless gaslighting is exactly what Thomas wanted. Pavana's distress hits a fever pitch, and she begs him for a way out. She genuinely believes that because he's part of the game's architecture, he holds the single key to stopping her immense suffering. You can practically hear the sheer desperation in her words. "Please, you're the only one who has my switch glitch fix. Don't leave me down here, please." The screams, the pain. This isn't roleplay, guys. This is absolute, undeniable agony. It's a heartbreaking plea from someone trapped in a digital hellscape of their own mind, begging the architect to let them out. And what does Thomas do? He responds with a deafening, devastating silence. Looking at the timeline of their relationship, there's a chilling evolution from a supposed protector to a hostile accuser. Back in October 2017, he's signing off as your friend Thomas. By late December, when Pavana is just desperately trying to recover, he pulls away, claiming he's been ill. And then, the narrative violently snaps in January 2018. Part 4. The Judas Accusation. After abandoning her in her absolute darkest moment, Thomas returns in January with a shocking, calculated pivot. His tone completely shifts from fake concern to aggressive, self-righteous victimization. He viciously attacks the woman who just barely survived a mental breakdown, claiming she betrayed him. He says, "You betrayed me. I did nothing. Now you go to my friend Pauline and stab me in the back? Why have you become a Judas?" This is that classic manipulation tactic: deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. Out of nowhere, the manipulator plays the victim. He literally calls her a Judas. He's punishing her for surviving, for talking to others, and for seeking the truth. He's trying to rewrite the history of his own abuse and dump all the guilt squarely onto her. Part 5. The real cost of games. Confronted with this incredibly audacious accusation, Pavana finally fights back. Her lengthy response to this whole Judas claim strips away the fantasy entirely and reveals the devastating human cost behind the digital curtain. After months of terror, she finally sees the board and the players for what they really are. She methodically breaks down his hypocrisy. She points out how Thomas defends these lying role players, guys pretending to be powerful entities like Tangri, while viciously attacking her for just wanting the truth. She highlights how she was carelessly passed around like a plaything. And most importantly, she explicitly names the collateral damage. She points out that these puzzles haven't just hurt her, they've actively harmed a whole list of real people. Marcus, J1337, Tech, Lisa. She proves this wasn't an isolated incident, but a systemic pattern of abuse disguised as a game. In her final message, she writes, "The puzzles and puzzle people did this to me, so whoever is innocent should not fear or be angry." It's this incredibly empowering, tragic conclusion. Despite being broken and hospitalized, Pavana finds absolute clarity. She places the blame right where it belongs, on the toxic architecture of the game and its manipulative creators. She realizes the confusion wasn't a glitch, it was a built-in feature. The whole game was a trap. So I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought to chew on. When the game ends, who is held responsible for the shattered reality left behind? In this unregulated Wild West of internet puzzles, where anonymous users act as puppet masters, how do we protect the vulnerable from people who deliberately weaponize confusion? Because as we've seen today, the digital footprints are real, the trauma is real, and the psychological scars last far, far longer than any game. Keep asking questions, analyze what's presented to you, and always prioritize the truth over the illusion.